Good day, everybody. Welcome to Life Sciences Grade 11. Today we are wrapping up the topic of human gaseous exchange with a class activity and a bit of revision. My name is Tutuzile Rupega. So there is a quick revision and then we get on to the class activity. Remember, we covered all of these topics now, so we'll just move through them quickly. Cellular respiration and breathing. Oxygen is required by the cells for respiration, whilst carbon dioxide is released as a waste product. Respiration produces energy vital for the organism's survival. Requirements for, so there we know about, that's what we learned about cellular respiration and breathing. You require oxygen for the cells, the cells require oxygen so that cellular respiration can take place. And then carbon dioxide is the byproduct of that. It is released as a waste product. Then respiration also produces energy. So it would break down oxygen and food and glucose to give you energy and carbon dioxide, which are vital for the organism's survival. You cannot survive without the energy, and you need oxygen so that we can get that energy. Then the requirements for efficient gas exchange. I actually never gave you this work. Ne? Let me upload it. Okay, Ori. I want to upload the work so you can go through it even on your own as well, about the human gaseous exchange. The requirements for efficient gaseous exchange. There are various requirements there so that it happens perfectly. And remember, when we discussed that, we touched on what? The surface area and how it needs to be thin. There, I'm uploading it now. You'll get it just now. Ne? Please do that. Just use it, monitor your work to see. It's just a quick recap. These are the requirements for efficient gas exchange. So it's important that the organs that are responsible for gaseous exchange meet these requirements so that gaseous exchange can occur easily or efficiently. So features of efficient gaseous exchange organs of organisms include what? The large surface area, the thinness, moistness, being well ventilated and protected, and having a good transport system. So those are the requirements. It needs to have a large surface area. It needs to be thin in structure. It needs to be moist. It needs to be well ventilated and protected. Also needs to have a good transport system. So if you look at all of those, when you study more of these features of gaseous, if you study all of those organs that are involved in gaseous exchange, you will see that they meet these requirements to enable them to facilitate respiration and gaseous exchange in the organs and different organisms. We even covered on different types of organisms and how they meet these requirements. Human gaseous exchange. After that, we moved on solely to focus on human gaseous exchange. The macro structure, meaning that big structure of the human breathing system includes what? There are various things included in the human breathing system or the respiratory system, which is the trachea, epiglottis, bronchi, bronchioles, lungs, ribs, intercostals, diaphragm, and alveoli. And we learned all of these different structures and their functions. The alveoli are adapted to exchange gases between the air and the blood through processes of diffusion. Remember, the oxygen in the alveoli will diffuse from a high concentration alveoli walls into the blood capillaries, which have a low oxygen concentration. So that's how it happens, diffusion from a high concentration to low concentration. It's down a concentration gradient. Because there's high concentrations of oxygen in the alveoli, it will then move down to the lower concentration gradient in the capillaries, blood capillaries. Oxygen is transported in the form of what? Remember we said there are two ways oxygen is transported. In the form of oxyhemoglobin, whereby oxygen binds with hemoglobin and they form the product oxyhemoglobin, or it is also dissolved in blood plasma. So it's traveled around the blood. So those are the two ways. But carbon dioxide is transported in three ways. It is mainly as bicarbonate ions. Secondly, by carbaminohemoglobin, whereby it's the carbon dioxide that binds with the hemoglobin, and carbonic acid. So these are the three ways in which carbon dioxide is transported in the body. The rate of breathing is controlled by chemoreceptors in the brain, aorta, and carotid arteries. The chemoreceptors are sensitive to changes of carbon dioxide and pH levels of blood. You remember how mainly the medulla oblongata, when it senses the chemoreceptors are sensitive to these changes, then it alerts the medulla oblongata, which then facilitates and ensures that the breathing rate increases so that you can take in more oxygen and release carbon dioxide. What did the medulla oblongata actually sense? It was these changes in carbon dioxide. As carbon dioxide increases in the blood, the pH levels drop because it makes the blood acidic. And you can see through the products here of the carbon dioxide here, carbonic acid, it contributes to the acidity of the blood, right? And the carbonate ions there, because it releases a lot of hydrogen ions as well. It contributes to that, to the decrease of the pH level in the blood. And we also noted that it's very sensitive only to the change in carbon changes in carbon dioxide. So whenever carbon dioxide levels change, that's when it would react quickly. Then we moved on. The most recently we studied the respiratory disorders and diseases. And what did we say? We discussed quite a number of them, ne? We had quite a number of these disorders and diseases. Diseases and abnormalities affecting the breathing. These here, the respiratory ones, they affect those organs that facilitate in respiration, and therefore they interfere about that, everyone. So we discussed these different respiratory diseases and disorders. Remember, we also discussed the very latest one that has us on lockdown and has us even doing the school online, which is the COVID-19. It is also a respiratory disease, amongst many other things, because wow, that is a nightmare from hell. Ne? But we then also went into details, especially with tuberculosis, about the causes of that and treatment. And the main important things we learned is that it is very important that you finish firstly, it's important that when you notice the symptoms, you go get tested so that you can be diagnosed. Then after you're diagnosed, so that you can get proper treatment, because different types of bacteria, especially with tuberculosis, could be the reason for your TB. So different people have different bacteria that affect them. Other bacteria are more resistant to medication, so you would need a stronger dose of medication or antibiotics to fight off that infection. That is why it's important that you are diagnosed and you get medication specifically for you, so you cannot be sharing medication. It's also important to take preventative measures. But we also learned that the main reasons why people or why this is such a pandemic in South Africa. Mostly it's one of the top number one diseases that kill a lot of people, mainly because of the issues or the socio-economic issues surrounding those people. It could be what? Environmental pollution. Remember, if you are in an environment which is constantly which has it's polluted, then you can be prone to that. If you live in areas that are clustered and you are close to each other, because these can be airborne, then you can actually get the disease or the virus or the bacteria from other people you are in close proximity with. Other the diet as well. People are under are malnourished and they don't eat enough food that allows or gives the body fighting power, makes the body strong. Then you are more prone to these diseases. And we learned about how people get diagnosed and then they are sent home. At home, you're exposed to very many other people, and then you expose them to the bacteria or the virus. And then now more people end up getting infected. And that is the case we see with COVID as well. People are sent home to self isolate, but it's not really possible in certain conditions in the country where people are living in poverty and they live in very small houses and they even share toilets and water stations with the entire community. Their diseases and viruses spread at a quicker rate because of such conditions. And these are the issues we need to take note of when we are doing our research. Like I mentioned, whether you want to be a doctor or you want to be a scientist, a microbiologist, a biotechnologist, whatever you want to be, you need to be cognitive of the fact that it's not just the health issues that affect people, the socioeconomic conditions as well play a role in that. And if you want to win this fight of the health, we need to also address many other issues that our people are faced with. And that is very important, especially for these diseases, the respiratory, because they are mostly airborne. So whether or not you are faced with those conditions, at one point or another, we are connected beings. We live in communities. We share the same shops. We work in the same places. So everyone is bound to be affected by it. The causes of these diseases and infections could be microorganisms, environmental pollution, self-caused problems, or allergies. Self-caused could be probably you are smoking, it's self-caused. You are smoking, you are deciding for yourself to destroy your entire respiratory system. Or allergies, if you're allergic, that's when you see people who cry because of hay fever and all of those. That could be because of that. It is also important to remember as well that when we listed, remember we listed these infections and disorders, you could have these and they could actually be a symptom to a bigger problem, probably lung cancer. So you could be suffering from bronchitis, and when you do further research and diagnostic tests, you find that it's actually lung cancer. So it's very important that you pay attention to the symptoms you have and get tested as soon as possible. Smoking. We also discussed smoking and how it is very addictive and dangerous. It can cause cancer, heart disease, asthma, and other respiratory problems. Smoking is illegal in any enclosed or partly enclosed public space in South Africa, and advertising of smoking is banned. So it's very important that we take note of these rules and we respect other people and their health. Mouth-to-mouth artificial respiration, it was part of the work we did yesterday at the homework. This is when a rescuer would breathe into a victim's mouth to make airflow in and out of the person's lungs if natural breathing is weak or stops. This has saved many, many lives, because probably when usually in incidences where a driver is driving down the road and there's an accident, they are able to go and resuscitate a person. They are able to go and help that person before even the first responders are there. And that is why also we said it's important, the role of the first responders is that much important. They play a huge role in saving lives. Then, effects of altitude on gaseous exchange. I also said, remember, with mouth-to-mouth artificial respiration, I said it might be very good if it's a variable cause to take first aid. If you have a chance of taking first aid, do it. You never know which lives you can save or how many you can save. And then we went on to discussing the effects of altitude on gaseous exchange and made different examples of athletes and how they are affected by this. At a higher altitude, there is less atmospheric pressure and air resistance is so good for short, intense activity. But the lower oxygen levels make endurance even harder, and that's why it's difficult for people doing the marathon race or the long endurance races. But it's good for those doing the very short races, so it works in their favor. But the ones for long distance races that need endurance, the low oxygen levels, it makes it difficult for them. Altitude training increases numbers of red blood cells and oxygen because you in high altitude there's less oxygen, right? More red blood cells will be secreted in your body so that they allow for the facilitation of more oxygen to supplement for the one the one you're not receiving enough of in the environment. So because you're only receiving little amounts, more red blood cells will then be able to attach to as many oxygen molecules as possible and facilitate your breathing. And then that was it, ne? Now we can go on to the activity. I think I've summed it up for you. I literally summed up everything for you. So now we can move on to the activity. So feel free to engage with me. Type in the chat box there. If you know the answer, I'll give you a chance to also say the answer. Ne? Number 1, oh, this is extracted from the Via Africa Grade 12 Life Sciences textbook. You can go through it, which I told you I got mine from Snaplify. So download Snaplify. The books are free until December this year. A, name the parts labeled A to H. So you're showing the human thorax. Label the parts named A to H. Let's go to that diagram. There, A to H. Quickly, who can tell me? Let's participate, everyone. A to H. Tell me anyone that you know here. You can just tell me D is what, F is what, the one that you know. Tell me that one. Any that you know. Just tell me the one you know. We'll do them together. Okay, Butle has given me D. At the very least, you should all know A. A, B, and H. I think those are easy. And G, actually. Okay, actually, all of them. A is the thyroid cartilage. It's the thyroid. Even if you had given me thyroid, you'd be correct. That's the thyroid. Remember, I always draw this for you, actually. B is the trachea. Oh, I always draw the trachea, actually. It's the trachea. A is thyroid. B is trachea. Thyroid cartilage. B is trachea. Remember thyroid, we did the thyroid gland when we were learning the endocrine system. Now we are seeing the cartilage, the thyroid cartilage over there in the neck area. B is the trachea. Thank you, Bushe. And then C is the bronchioles. Remember, I always draw it for you that these are like the branches, the roots. They can be like roots and they can be like branches. So I don't know which one you prefer calling it, but just to give you an idea and you can be able to remember. D, these are the 3 lobes as right lung. So the lobes here as the right lung. Or you can even say it's the lung. You'd still be correct if you could say the lung. E is the pleura. Remember pleura? Yes, we learned about the pleura there that surrounds the lung area, that it protects, it shields, protects the lung area. And then F is the left bronchus. It's the bronchus there. Next up, it's G. Oh, I understand why you said pleural membrane, Butle. I get you, but you can just say lung. I understand though your reasoning there. F is the left bronchus. G is the alveoli. The alveoli is the one you should know and should identify. It's like those little sacs where they facilitate the process of gaseous exchange. And then H is the diaphragm, you see? So it's very easy. Remember, go back to all our presentations and try and recap if you have forgotten anything there. Next question. Why do the airways have rings of cartilage surrounding them? Why do the airways have rings of cartilage? This one we didn't discuss, so I'll give you the answer. The walls are strengthened with cartilaginous rings, which keep the tubes open so that the air can pass through the trachea unobstructed. So they facilitate in the passage of air so that it passes unobstructed. Ne? So they strengthen that. They strengthen the walls so that they do not ever close off, so that they can always remain open, so that air can always pass through. Because without them, chances are the rings here wouldn't be strong enough, wouldn't have enough strength to remain open, and they might close, and that might affect your breathing system. That is why these respiratory disorders are so bad. They affect your breathing system. They affect these structures, and then you end up, it ends up closing off. Then you can't pass enough air through. You see? Question C, what is the purpose of the ribs? Just think about it and think about the requirements for organs that participate in gaseous exchange. Okay, the purpose of the ribs, guys, is to protect the lungs against injury. So you see where the lungs are located, they are enclosing the ribs, they're protecting them. Should any injury occur, look, the bones here, those are the ribs, you see? They are protecting the lungs. Should any injury occur, at least the rib, the bones are there to protect and shield the lungs. Because what if you were attacked by something, unfortunately, and then it attacks straight to your lungs, then you'd be affected quite badly. Then D, the structure H represents the thorax and the abdomen. Name 3 structures that pass through H. Let's go to H. It shows the thorax and abdomen, né? There. There's the abdomen. Thorax and abdomen. So what are the structures that pass through H? It is the veins, the arteries, and the esophagus. Those are the three structures that pass through H. So go through the structure, revise it, and you'll be able to answer this question in the tests. And then question 2, tabulate 3 ways in which expired air is different from inspired air. Tabulate those 3 different ways. That expired air, which is the air that you exhale, differs from the air that you inhale. So there's our table over here. We did a table like this, remember? We had a table like this. It's actually that table, that exact table. There's atmospheric air, there's inspired air, there's expired air. You take in about 79% of, in the atmosphere, there's about 79% of nitrogen, 20.96% of oxygen, and 0.04% of carbon dioxide. Then as you inhale, you will take in the full 79% of nitrogen. And then you will take in 18% of oxygen. So you're not taking all the oxygen that's in the air. You'll take in about 18. You'll also breathe in about 3% of this 0.04. Then remember, please take note that these are percentages. So don't let the numbers confuse you. It's percentages, right? And then it's the expired air, the air that you exhale. You inhaled 79%, you will exhale 79%. You inhaled 18% of oxygen, but you only exhaled 14% oxygen. You inhaled 3% of carbon dioxide, but you exhaled 7% of carbon dioxide. And there are various reasons for this. Why? Remember, I'll go through them one by one. I want to change the color of my pen here. The oxygen. I'll start with nitrogen. The reason you inspire 79% and expire 79% is because the body does not need any nitrogen in your body. So you take it and you'll release it. If there's no need for it, it won't take any of it. It doesn't have anywhere to store it. It doesn't have any place to use it for. So it will release it the same way it came. So that's why it's still remaining 79. But when it comes to oxygen, you are inspiring only 18%, right? You inspire 18%, but you expire 14%. Why? Sum of that difference there, it's 18 minus 14 is 4. There's a difference of 4%. That 4% is used up in your body. Remember, it is used for cellular respiration, whereby it's broken down to release energy. So it's used up in the body, as well as that it's transported to other organs in your body where it is required to facilitate the respiration. That is why. And then with carbon dioxide, you breathe in 3%, and then you breathe out what? You breathe out 7%. Why? There was already some carbon dioxide in the body because the body is in constant state of cellular respiration, and the product of that is carbon dioxide. So it also shows that one that that was the carbon dioxide that was in the system as well, that is being expired. So I hope that is clear, ne? And then question B, give 3 ways in which the alveoli are adapted to their job of exchanging gases between the air and the blood. Remember the requirements there? Alveoli are thin. They have a large surface area and they are moist. Let's go see why we are saying they are thin and they have a large surface area. There's lots and lots of them here, lots of alveoli over here. So that helps with the surface area. They increase the surface area. They are also very thin in structure and they are moist as they are there surrounded in the lungs, the liquids there. They are moist. And then next question, question C. Explain as fully as you can how air is made to enter the lungs when you breathe in. Remember that whole section where I taught you how the process of inhalation takes place? When you breathe in, it's an active process. The diaphragm contracts and flattens. The intercostal muscles also contract. The rib cage is then lifted upwards and outwards. Why? To increase the volume there. Abdominal muscles do what? They relax. So the rib cage is moving upwards and outwards, right? Then the abdominal muscles are relaxing. That does what? That increases the cavity here of the thoracic cavity. It would enlarge, increasing the volume. And when the volume increases, the pressure will drop. Remember when we learned about the inverse, they're inversely proportional to each other. When volume increases, pressure drops. And then because of that, then oxygen is then drawn into the lungs. That's how it happens. There's enough volume now so that oxygen can come in. Now, when it's exhalation, it will be the exact opposite of these processes. The volume will then decrease over here where the thoracic cavity will decrease, decreasing the volume, increasing the pressure so that carbon dioxide is released. That is, yes, that was that part over there. Question 2B. Okay, Butle, let's go back to question 2B. Give 3 ways in which the alveoli are adapted to their job of exchanging gases between the air and the blood. Remember, oh, it's 2B there. You remember this was part, and you'll even see it with the work that I gave you. The work that I gave you here on the homework that I gave you today, you will also encounter this. But we discussed it, I think, last week when we were discussing the requirements for the organs that help in gaseous exchange. Those requirements are that it needs to be thin, right? That organ needs to be thin. It also needs to have a large surface area. It needs to be moist. It also needs to be protected, secured, and then it needs to have a good transport system. So those are the 5 requirements. And now the alveoli here is a gaseous exchange organ, and it needs to meet these requirements as well. So when you look at the alveoli, you can see that yes, it is thin in structure. It has a large surface area. Why? Because there are lots and lots of them. So they cover for the large surface area. The example of that would be, let me try and make it clear to you why. If you, let's say, yeah, in the parties, you know, when there are performances, live performances, and you see the artists throwing themselves to the audience and they carry him. Why? Because there's a large surface area of audience there. They trust that someone will catch them because the surface area is large. There are many people there, so there's no way you'll fall to the floor unless, of course, they move. So that's what it means. There are many people. One person on his or her own wouldn't be able to carry the person who's throwing themselves. But when there's lots of them there, it covers the surface area, and you are able to all of you carry that load. So that's what happens here with the alveoli as well. There are lots and lots of them, so they cover for the large surface area. And they are also thin. They allow for the diffusion of gases in and out to happen effectively. And when I taught this, I made the example of when you want to cook, if you were to boil the big ball of potatoes, it would take time to cook. But if you were to peel it and then cut it into slices, it would cook at a faster rate because it would have a thinner size, it meaning the volume has also decreased and there's a large surface area. It also needs to be moist so that the diffusion occurs nicely. There's no friction. If there's friction, then it doesn't, even you notice yourself when there's friction, you can't really move properly. With slides, if there's friction, you wouldn't be able to slide through. That's why the water slides are very fast. They're moist, so they move through quickly because there's no friction. That happens as well through gaseous exchange because it would constantly be friction as the heart, the lungs are beating or pumping, you know. So now when it's moist around that area, there's no friction and it happens easily. You understand that, Butle, now? And then the protection, I want to go back to the diagram as well. It is shielded in that area though. It is, yeah, we can say it's protected. And the transport, because there are blood capillaries around, so it's easy for the transportation to happen. Are you okay? Can I move on? Oh, don't, time is almost up. Are you okay? Okay, guys, since there are no questions, I guess I'll see you tomorrow. We'll finish up the paper tomorrow, ne? Thank you so much, everybody. See you tomorrow. Bye.